It has been about 36 hours since the incident. I have witnessed something that I have no words for. I am still quite heavily shaken. After me witnessing that thing, I experienced headache, nausea, confusion. It felt like blood loss, but without the nice and comforting feeling of mental clarity. Seriously, go donate blood. You can save lives. If you want to do that for some reason, I can't relate. So, what am I talking about? I have witnessed one of my own creations from 2023. Now I need to warn you before I show it. What you are about to see can be quite shocking, and it might permanently cause damage to your physical, mental, any sort of being. I cannot show you this without warning you that this might just rip apart the fibers of your existence if you see it, so brace yourself. You shall see what you won't be able to unsee for the rest of your existence. Behold. My painting for a 2023 Draw This in Your Style challenge. Now, this might be shocking for you. I know I am seeing what you are seeing, and we're going to together, you and I, do something about this atrocity, this visual crime that is visible on my screen right now. But let me show you first what prompted me to do this right now. This challenge was created by Eddiescribs, formerly known both as Simon S. Arts and Six Studios. I participated in this challenge back in 2023, and now Eddie is the one who is redrawing his own Draw This in Your Style challenge, achieving the following result. And here I am left to wonder if I have any chance of making things right and doing the same thing with my own. If you want to check out Eddie's channel, I will link leaves. Link leaves? I will leave a link to this video in the description, alongside with the other links that he has. But after witnessing what I have done myself, I am no longer confident that you are even in a state where you are capable of clicking links or clicking away from this video. If right now you are paralyzed by shock, glued in one place towards your screen, and the only thing that you can listen to is my voice, and the only thing that you can look at is my creation, because you cannot even move your eyeballs anymore without being reminded about your hurtful existence, then let me try my best and make that state as bearable for you as it can be, and let me do whatever I can to make this piece better. I also have two versions of it. One of them is without the effects, so I will be using this as a base, make everything about this piece better, and then I will redo the effects roughly the same way. We will see how I can progress with that. The first thing that we need to do is upscale this image. Let's do that really quickly. Here we have the upscaled version with Dead Name 2023. Now I will for now just hide the effect version, and we will be working from this one. Step number one is let's identify some issues. Very old rule that everyone who tried to learn drawing portraits learned. The rule of thirds. This distance must be about as big as the one below, but you can like blatantly see right here that it's not. The eyes, if it was regular human anatomy, would have about one eye of distance in the middle. Obviously this character does not have that because the eyes are purposefully bigger, but what I did here was the head is looking upwards. The head is like this, but then what I also did was put the eyes on a line like that. So instead of that, I have this. Why would that be an issue? Now, if the head is rotated upwards and the eyes are like rotated in a way as if they were on a face that is looking downwards, the features are just somewhat falling apart. You know, it is kind of a what am I looking at kind of situation. So that needs a little addressing. I am pretty fond of how the eyebrows and how most of the hair turned out. Neck area is like giant, possibly. The head compared to the body, maybe expand the body just a little bit. Add a little bit more of the original, little difference with the neck piece of the sweater. There is a snake coming out from this person's eyeball. The only things that I forgot to add are little eyes and the tongue. And there we go, we have our magnificent snake. But if we come with the assumption that it was not meant to be a snake, however much it looks like that, then, you know, this needs some serious toning down. The other thing that I always committed an issue with, that sounded funny. The other issue that I always commit to this day, to be frank, but I'm like really treating every part of the face or like every part of every complex structure that I make as a really individual thing. When an entire eye is supposed to be in the shadow, I identify the light parts of it, and then they will be as light as the lighter versions of the same things located elsewhere on the character. So you know, we need to really touch up the way I rendered out the things and how they would be, you know, casting shadows on their own body parts. Some of the rendering decisions need to be really reconsidered from my part. Let's see what we can achieve with just a simple liquify tool, and let's work from there, because that is already a huge thing that can improve this piece. Salvage as much as I can from this original version. Another huge thing that I see here, we have the middle of the face. The nose is really switched to this side. So is the lips. The lips are not as bad. They are still, you know, they are still looking in that direction, but it is not enough for our purposes. So exaggeratedly, very sad cartoon smile, somewhat modified. Generally, when you look at the face from this angle, you will see a little bump here, and I'm pretty sure that's like the side of the jawbone that is visible from this angle. It is not going to be equally as visible for everyone, but generally, if you keep in mind that there's a cheekbone here, and then there's the jawbone, and in between them there is a little like indent that can roughly work. I recommend that you really consider with every single one of your characters whether or not you want to add this detail. Wow, just look at this already. Let's do the thing with the nose. Okay, I just cut off a copy of the nose, so it's not grouped in with the rest of the face for my liquify layer. Liquify. Now the wings of this nose are like really, really strong. It's like, how much contrast do you want on those wings? All of it? Cool, got it. And at the meantime, the entire rest of the nose just sort of disappears into this ambiguous blob. You know, what sort of nose are you making? I don't know. Plop. There you go. That's a nose. Does it look like a nose? Not really. Does it resemble a nose well enough so I can say that, yeah, that's a nose? But if you want to achieve anything but to gaslight others into believing that that is a nose, then that requires some serious reconsiderations. I feel like I'm roasting myself in this video so much. Don't do this to other people. Roast your own work and your own former self as much as you want, and I guess roast everyone else with their consent. Reconsider that for other people. What I want to do from the original is like a little bumpy nose, like the one where the main part of the nose, I don't know what it's called, more pushed inwards, and there's like a slight shape for the entire nose, like this. Yeah, push it, all of it to the side a little bit, like that. Checking this distance, still bigger. It might be okay for the cartoonish proportions, that the bigger eyes will push the eyebrows a little bit upwards. Also, I feel like this eyebrow is much closer to the nose than this one, but maybe this entire brow bone could be pushed a little bit to this side. Like right now, here we barely see anything from the outside of this area. I'm making videos about this stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, this area on the face, as if there was any sort of way for me to know what it's called, like Google or, I don't know, ChatGPT. Don't use ChatGPT, that was a joke. Eyebrow can be modified a little bit. I blend in these two now that I'm here, just roughly. Also, yeah, see, there's this part of the middle of the forehead in between the eyebrows. See how I had it lined up in the original version, and then it was completely pushed away when I modified the nose. Now that's because this character has some really serious proportion issues that can be addressed now. So like this eyebrow can come even closer, something like this. I feel like originally I had this really strict idea that, yeah, one eyebrow on this side, another eyebrow on the other side, and then, you know, you just don't consider how they are located on the entirety of the face and how they will be distorted into their place due to like I almost said foreshadowing, due to foreshortening. Also, sorry if my voice keeps falling apart. I haven't been practicing speech enough lately. Also, those are like the blackest. Oh wait. Those were meant to be black piercings by default. I almost thought that these were meant to be gray, and I just blackened them out to a degree that it's not even funny. Yeah, we will be messing around with those, but let's check out our eyes and how we can either rotate them into their proper position. If I rotate these eyes like this, the face will actually look like someone shown from below, because, you know, these eyes, you're looking down at someone. If I move my head, the line on which the eyes are sitting will be different. Unless I got that very, very wrong. But, you know, I am never wrong. I might be only partially inaccurate. Also, this eye is like, it reaches the end of the word. Where are you going? Go back. There you go. The little tear duct part of the eye, it's not even shaped like that in the original. The original character has like very narrow little ones here, and also has a bunch of extra mascara on them, like this. You can just see that I made this original portrait before I ever started doing makeup and all of that. Also, this was made by a cisgender person, totally cisgender person, so whoopsies for the inaccuracies, ladies, NBs, and etceteras. This guy here has no idea how people look or sound. Now, I briefly talked about how I really individualized every part of the image originally, and one of the victims to that are the lower eyelids. Do have a different color, but it doesn't mean that they are located in a different dimension the way I made them. Also, this thing is weird. Oh yeah, I did this when I was totally in a position where I was not able to draw eyelids properly, and many times I just completely skipped on eyelids altogether. Like, you will see pictures of me in this era where I just didn't have eyelids. Not eyelids, eyelashes. Did I just say I skipped the eyelids? I skipped the eyelashes a whole bunch of times. I still struggle with them to this day, but of course I got better at making sure that they exist. Also, these are like very, very specific looking eyes that have a very specific upper eyelid, and they have a very specifically like shallow eye socket, which is like nowhere visible in the original. So if I just remove some of this shading, all of a sudden it doesn't look like a completely different character. This looks more like the same character just rendered out by someone else. Now, the way I would do this nose now is not have this absolutely facing towards a black hole side of the nose, because, you know, originally the only way I can describe some of what's happening here is that on the original picture there was a black hole right here and another black hole light here that is not visible to us, and there was just a bunch of light absorbed by these I think I wanted to say absorbed by these. This is me from the editing room, which is the same room I'm just editing now. I actually wanted to say distorted. That is not how physics works. Now, here's the part where we can establish a consistent lighting on the entire nose. Upper side has more light, lower side has less light, and somewhere there will be the little nostrils, you know, visible and not like giant gaping wounds that were inflicted by, I imagine frostbite, looking at the butterflies being made out of ice, but you know, it's not like there's a giant black shape in the nose. Maybe the black holes were inside the nose and somehow they distorted the entire physical environment of the picture, and that's why my old version looks like that. Like, you know, there's a maybe like there's a black hole somewhere here. Yeah, like black hole here. See, now what happens is a bunch of light is just distorted, so the lighting is all messed up. The eyes, the middle, the inside part of the eyes is squished in by the black hole below the surface. This brow bone is collapsing from the gravitational pull, so is the rest of this part. And somehow, according to some logic, the entire... What is the name of this thing? The entire... I'm just flipping off the camera with this motion right now. The entire point of the jaw. The entire point of the jaw is somehow... No, I figured it out. So the jawbone from the sides are already dislocated and they are pulled inside and towards the middle of the head. And then, you know, the distorted, broken middle of the jawbone is poking through the skin, and that's why you see this, whatever this thing is here. And now this has been anti-black hole. That sounded interesting. I would be such a successful, horrible person who can just insult others all day long. Could I, once we have a functioning nose that doesn't look like, okay, I have to stop. I'm having way too fun roasting myself. Okay, now, after we created a nose that can exist according to the laws of nature, these lips, so the bottom part of the lips are generally brighter than the upper part. Now, according to me from 2023, that meant that the character just has totally flat lips, and those lips have differently colored lipstick on them. Let's create a little bit of a shadow here and just make, a visible progress from light to dark that we can observe with our beautiful eyes, like this. Also, I was very ambitious with this little highlight here, but it looks like, you just plastered a little sticker on top of the lips and called it a day. Highlights would look much more like this. I was already aware of these little highlights at the corner of the mouth. They are pretty visible. Did I just make that mistake right now? No. Actually, according to me from 2023, when your face is lit from the middle, the shadow only goes in one direction and goes very hard in that direction. My brush is not rotated properly. So instead of being, roughly evenly spread like this, it is just choosing its course and sticks to it. This whole side of the nose and like this part is still looking very weird. I'm like trying to figure out half the time what I'm even looking at here. I don't think that I wanted to express anything with the original eyebrows. They just came out like that. So let's keep them rather straight, but with a little curious and sad look in them, just bending them the right amount so you can see the little concern on the character's face. Speaking of concerning things, what about the snake from the eyeball snake? Or maybe that this is actually not a snake, this is the optical nerve that was pushed out somehow by the gravitational forces from inside, and it can look like something completely different. The optical nerve like turned transparent from laws of physics that are still yet to be discovered and explained. So the way I would nowadays make tears, you only sort of create the shadow of the tear. The more subtle, the better. I feel like if you make a tear, it has to be visible enough so you immediately recognize it. But then aside from that, the more ambiguous looking it is, the less into your face it is, the more sad and more true to life it is going to look. Also here I was still trying to figure out how to make eyeballs look really sad. So what you can do, one spot here, another spot here, one of them is the reflection of the main light source, the other one is the same but reflected not in the eyeball but in a little teardrop that is forming inside the eye. And if you position it against the iris, then it will be more visible, it will be easier to read. You can play around with that even if it feels not as true to life as you would imagine it to be. Now what you can also do is create a much more complex reflection. This could be like a part of the sky reflected through a bunch of little clouds. Maybe just do it like this. Also we can have like more moisture on the eyeball. Now this is like a really wet sphere that reflects across its entire surface, and we will have a lot of the tear duct being, the tear duct being lit because it is also very, very wet from the tears. And if I add the lower eyelashes, it's gonna be even more revealed than that. So we can make it very, very, very sad, which is something that makes us very, very happy. I will mess around with the eyeball. Let's just scrub it off right now, and I will do it from scratch properly, alongside with the entire redraw of the eyeball itself alongside the iris. Also, I'm like pretty sure that this character would look cool from heterochromia. Like pink side of the hair, pink eyeball, purple side, purple eyeball. I mean iris. Are we making as a society way too many characters with heterochromia? I mean, I only have one OC with heterochromia, so yeah, let's do this. There's not much I can say about the hair itself. I feel like what I did a whole lot of was really individual little pieces that are all responding to the light on their own terms, and like the only overall lighting effect that I have on the hair is that there's roughly this shape that is darker, and like maybe there's this shape that is also darker, but other than that there is no progression of light across the entire hair as a whole. So I will do an honest attempt to add that as well. Another little measurement. So the eye is roughly at the middle of the head all the time, and I'm pretty sure that I was aware of that, but then I sort of just placed the tip of the hair part to the middle of the face, or maybe I was just adjusting it over and over again until it just managed to crawl downwards. But let's see if I just really quickly select this part and do the liquify treatment like this. Is this gonna feel more like a real person instead of a random cartoon character? I would say that we do have some improvement there. This little line between... Welcome to another episode of I don't know what it's called. This little line is supposed to go more like this. It's straight on the scalp instead of being straight to the viewer. I will do another update with the butterflies and the torso, but look what we just did here in like 37 minutes, and that's 37 minutes of me explaining stuff. If I just saved it like this would already be an improvement, but let's see how much further we can go with this, and let's go to the like time-lapse part of the video. Don't let the ice butterflies get you, Barbara. Look! There comes one of them now. I mentioned briefly how I literally thought this was an unfinished version of the piece. Well, that was 100% authentic, and actually not even the first time. It literally happened to me before with something from the same year when I opened it recently, and I thought that I must have opened an unfinished version because there is no way that it was so bad. But you know, I was still under the impression that this one was at least different. Turns out not so much, and upon seeing it I had a huge doubt about literally any of my abilities to make anything, wondering if the things I make today are the exact same, I just can't see it. As I remember working on this video, I did spend a lot of effort pretty much redrawing the face entirely, and it must have contributed to many of the features being so off. And while I do think I knew most of the things I know now about the facial anatomy and just depicting three-dimensional objects in general, applying that knowledge was way behind in my skill set. I did start to really focus on portraits and the human face back around early 2023, much more than before, and while many of my other works at the time and even before had other qualities to counterbalance my lack of knowledge about just faces, this one didn't have that anymore, so my weaknesses immediately showed, and they showed hard. I spent most of this first part of the project just redoing the face and some of the other parts of the character, but other than touching up the hair a bit, the face itself was really the bad part that needed so many things to be addressed. By far the biggest challenge was of course about the shape of the eyes and also the detail of them. So they no longer feel like low quality blobs you would see on a background character. I continue to be amazed by the fact how I thought that these were good enough back in 2023. Okay, it's a few hours later. I roughly went through the character. I haven't really touched the butterflies, but they won't be that big of a change. I will do them sometime tomorrow, but first I want to really identify what are the effects that I have on this image and have like a rough idea on how to recreate them. So let's create some little notes for ourselves after I get my tablet to work. Also, I no longer have my makeup on, so darkness helps my image. Now, first of all, we have the giant haze, this red light that is visible everywhere except for these ones, for the little light rays. This is just one layer over everything else that tints the entire scene in purplish pink thingy, except for the parts where it is erased, so the head creates this partial shadow. Other than that, there is the glow on the butterflies themselves, simply just one layer. What is much more interesting though, we have on one hand just another one single layer coming from the butterflies, which is like this prism effect going through every single one of them that is just visible right around them. And there is the cast shadow on the face of the character that is combined together from multiple things. First, we have the main shadow itself that is one big layer that darkens the face, and inside that shadow we have the little color shifts, base, dark, that is creating the shadow, and we have extra appear inside that shadow. I just made like a rainbow pattern, I stretched it over the shadow and I blurred it, and like that's everything that was created there. Other than that, we have a subsurface scattering effect right around the shadow, like right at the edge of the shadow. I used to use this all the time when I learned about it. I was like, oh yeah, that thing is really improving everything that I do. And yes, in fact, by itself, it was improving everything that I did. I was sort of just using that among many other things as a substitute for creating better pieces overall. Just look at this face and see the improvement. Like, I was legit, I thought when I opened this file that I opened the wrong file. I was convinced that this must not be the final version that I saved in 2023, but in fact it was the final version. And I was really thinking that, okay, but did I even get any better? Like, if this is the version that I thought was okay back in 2023, then how can I know for sure that I am literally any better, if not worse? This version is a huge improvement. I am much more confident now. Let's sleep on this a little bit, and after I do a few things I need to do tomorrow before sitting down to work on this, hopefully finish and bring it to its maximum amount of glory that my current skill level can provide. And this video is gonna be an hour long already.
72 hours later.
Let's continue. Also, the makeup budget ran out for this video. Let's not overthink the butterflies, but I have a rough idea how I want to add to them and how I want to bring them to the level of the face. I should have looked up what this part of the butterflies look like. The wings are not attached to that part. They are always attached to the middle part, so I will like make this middle part bigger and add like a longer back part. Big eyes like this. You know what? Sentimentalism time. I'm color picking from the eye of the character, which is just literally a pure black, so it doesn't even matter, but I'm using that. There you go. Touching up the main butterfly was a thing I dreaded now more than before, not really knowing what I wanted to change and improve on it, not being as confident in it as I was with the face, where I exactly know what I wanted to be changed and I roughly already knew the idea what I wanted them to look like. Aside from modifying the body so it's not just a stick anymore, I retouched the way the translucency of the wings appeared, adding more contrast to thicker areas and more transparency to the middle part, along with little spots of murkiness inside, so it's not consistently transparent, it has some little variety in it, and of course some more clear highlights all over really give off the idea of it being made out of ice. I cleaned up the water droplets and painted over the particle effects to the little pieces of ice flying in the air around the wings, and this time I also retraced the original shadow on the face so I could reapply it with a higher definition along with the other light effects in and around the shadow. While I make this, I should talk about the meaning of this picture. For context, I made this before coming out in my 25th year of being alive, pretending to be a man. Around this time I was really reaching my point of not being able to deny it anymore and just kept drawing and painting crying feminine faces, desperately looking around in their surroundings. Without me having any idea, I was unintentionally painting self-portraits this whole time. Okay, no further complications until the final version of this piece. Let's see, I finished this one butterfly. I will get the others in shape as well, but first I want to figure out how the shadow and more importantly the inside of the shadow, on one hand the rainbow gradient is gonna go, and on the other hand I want to figure out the edge of the shadow. You know, this kind of effect that you might have seen in many places. You know, technically this would be a piece of little subsurface scattering, when some of the light entering the skin is also exiting it, but because it is just at the edge of a shadow, you can see a little more saturation for that short little distance. But you can use this effect on pretty much anything, and it's like an exaggeration of real life. Before I wanted to figure out how exactly I want to do this, I remembered where I saw this effect first. Let me show you. There is this video by Marco Bucci titled Master the Skull Transition in Your Paintings, where the entire video is about this light effect when there's a little extra saturated color appearing in between the light and the shadow, and how it all comes together, and how it is exactly based on science with like a whole bunch of demonstrations. I highly recommend watching this video. Just don't fall into the trap that I did when I saw this, which was, wow, it was a video from 2021. I don't think I started using this effect until a little bit later, but at one point I was like, I will add this effect for every single piece that I ever make, and it's going to be all amazing, without, you know, understanding why I would want to implement this as a first place, other than just, hey, this is a cool looking effect, let's add this, and it is going to elevate the mediocre piece that I made. At one point he mentions that if you add too many hues into this, then it will start to look like a rainbow instead of this effect. Well, I just saw that and said, well, I am in danger, so let's do exactly that. So first of all, when you look at the original piece that I did in 2023, it is just one orange line with the rainbow effect inside of the shadow being just one linear gradient from one side to the next without really any thought behind it. And I'm not saying that it looks bad, but it could be done much more interesting ways. So what I had in mind for this one is, you know, I started out the demo version of this with just this one gradient, and that was meant to appear in the shadow just with either a soft light layer or color or overlay or something. I was like settling on soft light and like around the opacity of 15 to 20%. So on a normal layer, this is how it would look like. It would make many of the dark places fade out, but if you put it on soft light, it is fading them out much less. It is still a thing that happens, but it is much more of extra little layer on top of everything that is already there, instead of it being a defining layer that is really showing what the entire finished piece is going to look like. That sentence sounded funny. I feel like I used that way too many times instead of re-recording lines. But then I had this idea that, okay, what if I wanted to completely eliminate this part, just completely keep this as a shadow, and instead actually do the prism effect as a little, you know, light fall off piece? Is it going to be entirely true to reality? No, not really, but is it going to technically work? Is it going to be something that can be added to this picture and can replace my original little flawed idea for the prism effect? Now that is a hard yes for me, but I had some failed experiments with how I wanted to approach this before just settling on, okay, let's just paint it by hand. So let me show you a really cool thing that you can use for other stuff. Yes, this is like turning into a little tutorial. If you have Krita, this Tucker is hiding there. Come on, brush presets, Tucker, come out. There you go. Under digital, there is a little tool that looks like a little letter Z made out of blanks, which is just like some measuring tape with pencils. It is a clone tool. Technically, this is a brush. Other programs like Photoshop have a completely dedicated tool for this purpose, but Krita treats that as just one of the brushes that you can pick. And the way it works is, if you have a layer with something on it, hold down Ctrl and click, and it becomes this cloner. And if you open the brush editor, you can uncheck source point move, so you will have a little stamp. Now, why would you want to ever use this? There is a very cool usage that I've seen people do, which is you can just make a gradient, grab the clone tool. This would still just be a gradient stamp without any really interesting parts, but if you change the brush tip to something else like this splatter, then you have a colorful splatter effect where literally different parts of the brush will have a different color based on the gradient that you are sampling from. What people generally use this for is having a foliage brush like this one. You will have a gradient inside every single sample. I didn't set it up properly, so it's not that visible, but you understand the idea. And I was like, okay, can I use that in order to make a rainbow, like to create a brush that is like a rainbow brush? So what if I make a little rainbow gradient? you know, like this? Is it going to paint me a little rainbow? And technically the answer is yes, but with a little issue. It is going to paint you a rainbow, but the issue is that when you do this, the rainbow is always facing the same direction. So I was like, okay, what if I make this sharper and like elongate it, and I turn on rotation by tilt direction? Can I just paint rainbows like this? Well, you can see the issue there. The red is always on the same side, and if you're rotating the brush around, it's not following your little rule that you set up for yourself. I'm pretty sure that you can make it work somehow. I haven't been able to figure it out. I know that you can like somehow set up different other properties for your brushes, especially in Krita, which is open source, and you can mess around with it much more, but I wasn't able to figure it out. The other thing that I was thinking about was, you know, you can have this little thing called layer style, and inside this you have outer glow that you can put on to normal and select a red color, so everything will have this little red outline, but you know, it is just one color. Then you can put this thing into a group and then go on the group and click layer style again, and then set up another color with different parameters, and then you can have like an entire like rainbow series of groups within groups trying to melt down your PC. Like I literally got to 4 groups myself, and then my PC decided to reenact the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so I really quickly gave up on that. And also this is just doesn't feel organic enough. Maybe you can figure out how to make it work properly. So what we're gonna do is we're just going to paint it manually. That's like pretty much all that I wanted to say in 13 minutes. So this video is going to be a lifetime long, doesn't matter. So what we will do is I'm gonna make a gradient pretty much until this blue inside the edges of the little shadow, you know, this becomes the green becomes a yellow, the yellow becomes the orange, which is gonna be this outside, and I will make sure to apply it roughly at the same rate to the entire shadow, so the entire silhouette will have this rainbow gradient going from the inside to outside. Sure, I can explain stuff in very complicated ways. And you know, other than that, I will do other glow effects, these light rays also just painted by hand, and the details for the rest of the butterflies and some details to the face, and then that's gonna be the end of our remake of this piece. So let's figure out how it will go. I should wash my hair. It's like visibly greasy in this recording. Originally this was not meant to be specific. It was meant to be a more generic piece that I titled "The Winter Butterflies Are Blossoming in the Spring." A bad omen causing existential dread at a time when you were expecting to see progress only to face regression, but made as visually beautiful as possible, of course. And this was originally influenced by both AI art becoming more popular and the humanitarian crisis that has been happening in Ukraine for about a year by that point. And that was a thing that I've been following even before the war broke out. Looking back now, I know it was also about my own repressed feelings and about what other people of my community were already experiencing, and now it is all of those, but even more so, even more relevant, while I would love it much more if it lost all of that relevancy, if I didn't feel the same, just even more so. The rainbow effect wasn't even meant to be a pride flag back then, it was just a prism effect. Unlike now, of course, knowing all that I know about myself and about others, now being able to add this one to the piece as well, giving it just one little more dimension of meaning. Okay, I just washed my hair. Yes, I am just stalling on finishing this. Also, it is bright outside, so I might have messed up the continuity. So it will actually reveal the truths that I've been working on this on and off for like a week, and I'm trying to pass it as if it was like 2 days or something. Anyways, self-aware jokes for the sympathy points. Also ASMR. Wrapping up the piece, I went around the rest of the butterflies and gave them the same makeover, just in smaller definition. Then I added the last of the light rays that are created by the butterflies themselves, following a similarly unlikely and physically incorrect prism effect. Also, I did eliminate most of the huge glow layer from the face of the character. It was already a giant mess of adjustment layers, and now at least I roughly know what is going on with the face. other than that, the piece is by all means finished. Would it have been better if I completely started this from scratch? Unlikely, I would say. I did have a base to directly improve on, one that I completely distanced myself from already to see the mistakes without having to worry about making new ones. But I am much more happy now that I managed to make this just so much better and how it was before, and just seeing that indeed I did have improvement in this time. Something that I wasn't confident about when I started this remake, and for once I had the experience of being disappointed in the best way. Before I go, I wanted to talk a few words about both of these pieces, both of these pairs rather said. What is the biggest improvement that I've seen in my own one? If you look at my old piece, what you see all over the place, aside from the very wonky anatomy everywhere, is every single feature of the face is treated like its own thing that has its own laws of physics, as it came from like a separate parallel dimension, and then in the improved version they all come together into being parts of the same face, following the same set of physics. And I was much more careful and much more deliberate with applying all of my little values, and I really kept in mind what is the range that I want to have it at every part of the image, and how they won't look like a dirty mess everywhere without any really good direction and consideration. And then what we have in Eddie's work, look at this difference between the two. Like, here are the two things that immediately caught my eye. The new one became much more volumetric, you know, it has a much bigger range of values, really placed everywhere around the image. It really feels much more like a three-dimensional character, unlike the original that already felt like that. But the contrast between the two is really, really spectacular to see. And in this regard, we're sort of the opposites of each other when it comes to the whole value situation. That mine was like really overdone, really full-on volume, every single place you can see, while the one made by Eddie had less of that contrast and less of that definition. And I managed to keep that at bay on mine and not overdo it every single place I could, while Eddie added so much to the original. So we're like evening each other out right now, that both of our PCs now have a much better amount of volume and values, and we just started from two different places but sort of moved towards the same one. Also the thing, look at the line weight difference between these two. You know, the difference and importance of the different lines and their thicknesses, especially like compared to each other, and how they all contribute like an extra dimension to making the character look three-dimensional, something that I can barely comprehend myself, since I never make anything really stylized, and I wouldn't even know how to make a piece similar to this one if I had to copy it. The combination of those two are making a huge difference in Eddie's work, while my improvement was much more streamlined, I would say. It's like I am doing the same thing with the same goal in mind. I'm just going about it with more experience and with more deliberation. Is that even a word, deliberation? I'm putting more effort into really thinking through how the different parts of the character are located in space, and how they will be affected by the light, and how their values will change depending on that. That's all I wanted to say. So thank you so much for watching. As I'm editing now, I haven't finished the editing. My prediction is that this video will be over an hour long, and I was really thinking about like, okay, how can I shorten this? How can I slice it apart into multiple videos? And I just came to the conclusion that I don't want to. Like, the different parts of this video wouldn't feel whole by themselves, and you know, I don't want to like make a part 1, part 2, part 3 just because the final version became longer. And I decided that I don't want to remove anything from it either. There is a part where I'm like talking for like 15 minutes about how I make the rainbow effect around the butterfly, and it's like I see why so many people will click away if they ever make it that far. But no, I made the decision that I will not compromise for anything. I'm being very bold, am I? So that's it for now. I should come up with a really spectacular ending. Okay, that was a joke ending. Here's the true one. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day. create something, even if it includes recreating a piece from 2 years ago, only to see how much you in fact did improve despite your preconceived idea that you're not improving at all and not moving in any direction. But most importantly, don't forget to have fun while doing that. Farewell. If you want to check out the other works of Eddie, I will link. If you want to check out other works of Eddie, and I'm also picking the microphone. I would like to apologize to your eardrums.
I'm sorry.
While I was editing this video, I listened to this joke that I made in the beginning. It felt like blood loss, but without the nice and comforting feeling of mental clarity. It totally sounds like I'm making a joke about using a sharp household object for anything other but its intended purpose, which was not my intention. So I pasted in a joke about go donate blood if you want to, but I cannot relate because I don't want to save people, or I don't remember what I said here, but use your sharp household objects for their intended purposes, please. Hey, this is me again. I'm not turning on my camera for one more sentence. I haven't over-explained this joke properly. In fact, I do regularly donate blood, so go everyone without any joke. Donate blood if you can. It's like they take the blood out of your body that you don't need anymore, and you will regain it, and you will feel better, and then they will use it in order to give it to someone who just had an accident or needs a surgery or whatever, and like your lifeblood is sustaining someone else. Like that's pretty metal if you ask me.